Hi everybody, Scott here. This video is about sensitivity, and it's really for everybody. It's for people that know that they're sensitive, that carry a sensitivity. It's for those that feel misunderstood in their sensitivity. It's for those that have been told growing up that they were too sensitive or that they needed to grow a thicker skin. And it's for those that have sensitive people in their lives. So often what I say to people in counselling, and it can sound a bit strange or unusual, and I guess the language is a little unusual, but what I often say to clients is that their whole self is welcome, and that there's not a part of them, their internal world, that's not welcome in the room. And that's really just to speak to those deeper parts, those more sensitive parts that need to know and need to hear that their sensitivity and their vulnerability is both welcome, and that it's a safe place for them to have or be in that sensitivity. So while this is not a counselling room as such, I just want to say to those watching that your whole self is welcome in this moment, in this room, in this video, and that there's not a part of you that is not welcome in this moment. So there are some of us that are born with an innate sensitivity. It's part of our temperament, it's part of our character, and it's basically it's like the nervous system doesn't require a lot of activity for it to feel stimulated or overstimulated. Now that sensitivity can manifest itself in different ways. It can manifest itself like in sort of environmental sensitivity, very sensitive to the changes in the environment. It can be an emotional sensitivity, both to others' emotions and themselves, and be able to really feel them in a very deep way. There can be like a sensory stimulation where a sensitivity to light and sound, too much light or too much sound can just over stimulate the nervous system, and it's gets overwhelmed, if you like, and requires downtime or quiet or silence or something in order to bring that overactivity down to an optimal level. A good resource to look into that a little bit further is a website where the link is in the description about highly sensitive people, and it has a questionnaire around these sorts of areas to help sort of pinpoint what area or areas you might have a sensitivity to. And they also have a book, I think it's called Highly Sensitive People, that you could have a read of as well. So whether or not we're born with an innate vulnerability to sensitivity, or we're born with that trait, quite often it's the environment that we grow up in that really determines how that sensitivity develops. And I just want to add that often when a person is sensitive, whether it's to sound or to sort of certain environments or emotions, generally if we have a sensitivity to one of those, we generally have a sensitivity to most of them, and there tends to be a correlation with empathy. But if we're born into a family that either doesn't understand sensitivity or sees sensitivity as a threat, then that sensitivity can get shamed, causing the child to bury that sensitivity, deny it, reject it within themselves in order to survive, and then that child grows up into adulthood, in a sense rejecting a very key and core part of who they are. Now, I think there's a few reasons for that scenario taking place. I think sensitivity if we grow up in a family where people aren't sensitive, maybe that, often parents have their own issues, then a child's sensitivity is like a threat to them, because it's almost like a mirror. Like if a parent is behaving poorly, that sensitivity in the child reflects back to the parent that that there's something not right in the parent. And if the parent's not able or not willing to address that, then the child's sensitivity becomes a threat to them. And in a sense, a person's going to go one of two ways. They're going to address their own issue, or they're going to shut down the child in some way so that they don't get mirrored back their own poor behaviour through the sensitive emotions of the child. And that's where you get, grow up, you develop a thicker skin, you're too sensitive, those sorts of things. And because a child, literally, their life is in the hands of the parent, then the child's going to internalise that and shut whatever they need to down in order to survive their childhood. There may be, in the family, just more personality types that don't, it's not that they don't value, but they just live in a different space. Maybe it's more sensory or more, doing, more practical, those sorts of things. And there can be a child that just is a sensitive child and carries a sensitivity and lives more in that realm. And if there's a lack of understanding of that deeper realm, then the child is only talked to or interacted with at a certain level, and that deeper level is not recognised or spoken into, and so it's like the child doesn't even know that it's there, and is only able to relate within the family in certain ways or at a certain level, and so they can carry that deeper part of themselves into adulthood, but it's kind of, we kind of need people growing up that help us to understand what is in us. So we need, we need our own emotions sort of reflected back to us so that we can identify them in ourselves. And if we don't have that, then there can just be a lack of awareness of our own depth growing up. I think the other issue is culture, that especially Western culture really looks down on sensitivity. It sees it as a weakness, it's something to be exploited, and we can learn pretty quickly when we become an adult and go out into the world that sensitivity is a liability, and it's often it can be taken advantage of, if you like. And our culture just values more extroverted traits and more sort of aggressive traits. People that just can just sort of plough their way through and get what they want, and leave the sensitive people in its wake. So there's a number of very key parts of our world that can really miss it in regards to sensitivity. What I mean is, we can be born with a predisposition to sensitivity. It can get shamed and missed in childhood, and then it gets exploited or taken advantage of in adulthood. And all of this just leads to a whole lot of pain for a lot of people. So what ends up happening is the sensitivity is, or the way I would put it is, the sensitivity is not the problem. It's the rejection and the denial of sensitivity that becomes the problem. Because when sensitivity is denied and rejected and pushed down, it's not protected in that sense. It's still vulnerable to being hurt or being exploited, if you like. it's, in a way, it's more vulnerable because there's a bit of a principle that whatever we deny or suppress usually ends up controlling us in different ways. So a sensitive person can end up being their own critic in a sense, that they reject their own sensitivity because they've been given the message that it's wrong, that it's weak, that it needs to go. So a person can end up sort of trying to develop this thicker skin, trying to not be sensitive, believing that it's wrong, and of course it doesn't work, and then the person ends up having a situation which causes pain, and then to them it becomes evidence that they're still not strong, that they're weak, that they don't have a thicker skin yet, which just leads to more shame and pain. And in a sense, that's all unnecessary pain. So for someone in that position, they're almost in an ironic situation whereby they need, in order to manage their sensitivity and for it to be less a liability in a sense, is to embrace their sensitivity, to own it, to accept that it's there, and to learn how to live with sensitivity. Because in a sense, when a person embraces and accepts their own sensitivity, then they can learn to manage it. And one of the reasons why it needs to happen that way is because they're going to experience less pain because they're no longer rejecting themselves. They're no longer rejecting, in a sense, the most sensitive part of themselves, which is their sensitivity. And so it's like they're no longer, sensitivity is no longer a weakness and a problem. It's just something that they carry, and the reason why things can upset them or become, they can be easily affected by things is because they carry a sensitivity, and then that just needs to be managed in some way. It's important not to go from sort of one pendulum swing to the other and walk around completely open-hearted all the time. That's certainly not the answer. I think it's important that we, guard our hearts from those that are not worthy of our sensitivity, or haven't earned, is probably a better word, haven't earned the right to see or be on the receiving end of our sensitivity. One of the dangers or the problems for a lot of people that carry sensitivity, or probably more importantly have rejected their sensitivity due to problems in childhood, is we can end up attracting similar types of people in our adult life that are also insensitive. And without going into that in a lot of detail, that usually happens to try to wake us up to our own childhood, to address it, and to learn how to keep unhealthy people away from us and learn how to have healthy people around us. So I just want to say say it very clearly, that there is nothing wrong with being a sensitive person. That it's actually an asset. It's we need sensitivity on this planet. Imagine a world without sensitive people. It would look a lot different, I think, than it does today, even with all that's going on in our world. If we didn't have sensitivity, the world would be probably look a lot different. So sensitivity is a gift. It has an ability to pick up on things. There's, like I said before, a correlation with empathy. There's the potential to be very empathic. It has the ability to be able to see things that other people can't see. And I just want to point out also that, if sensitivity is like an innate trait in people, then they're probably, as we get older, that trait is probably going to become better, if you like, in the sense that people probably become more sensitive. Like someone who has very, very good spatial skills. When they grow, as they grow older, they just become they become masters of the external world, and their spatial ability just becomes more accurate, more acute, becomes stronger, and they become experts in it, in a sense. So why can't the same be true for sensitivity? That people with an innate sensitivity trait, it becomes more sensitive, it becomes better at noticing things, it learns how to go even deeper, it learns how to read situations more sensitively. So asking somebody who is sensitive to become less sensitive is actually going completely against their makeup. And that's where you end up with a lot of pain, because we end up trying to push against something that's natural in us. So sensitivity needs to be valued and appreciated. And I think it first starts with ourselves, that we need to value and appreciate it and learn how to live with it, and learn how to use it as a gift, in a sense, in our relationships and in our working environment, and just in the world generally. Now, I just want to, a bit of a side note here, just mention that a lot of people, or there are some people that have this kind of background, in the sense that they come from a troubled childhood where their inner world was either ignored or shamed, leading to pain in their lives, and then those people go out trying to look for answers, and then people discover the MBTI, and they try and find some answers to their to what doesn't feel right on the inside, or they're just trying to learn more about themselves, and people discover the MBTI and see the benefits of it. But I think some people can unconsciously be trying to solve those deeper issues, or spend a lot of time in the MBTI, like either working out their type in some way, struggling and thinking they could be all different sorts of types, and all of this, spending months, if not years, trying to figure out their best fit type. And my sense on that is it's quite possible that that person is trying to get the MBTI to answer an unconscious question that the MBTI just can't answer. It's not designed to address those more complex issues. So for people that relate to what I'm talking about, in the sense of coming from a troubled childhood and having that sensitivity rejected, I wrote a 3-part series on how to get in touch with our deeper parts of ourselves. Those parts that we try and hide from, in a sense, and it's called "How is your mini me," which basically means how is your inner child. And you can find that on my website. The link is in the description if you want to check that out. It comes off the internal family systems model, which is a very good model for helping people to just get in touch with the various parts that kind of make up the self, if you like. So the first step is to just acknowledge and accept and embrace your own sensitivity. Then it's about, how do I manage that sensitivity in my life? And that can look lots and lots of different ways. Often it's requiring boundaries with people. It might require some adjustments in regards to the certain types of relationships that we're in. Could even come down to changing a working environment that more supports that sensitivity, in a sense. It may require therapy of some kind to work through some of those other issues that led to the rejection of self and the rejection of the sensitivity. And of course, self-talk and, the things that we think, the things that we believe, learning how to address those thoughts that can come up that want to reject the sensitivity. And so, in a sense, learning how to reframe what it means to be sensitive. That it's not a weakness. It's having a sensitivity means that there is a vulnerability to that part getting hurt or overwhelmed. But that's just not about weakness. It's just what can happen sometimes. And then it's learning how to just address that, those moments when they do occur, and they will occur. On one end of the pendulum, we've got a rejection of sensitivity. There's a denial that it exists. On the other side of the pendulum, there's, kind of wearing the heart on the sleeve and having, kind of living from that place of sensitivity, which can just lead to lots of problems, and being just reacting to everything, in a sense being oversensitive. Having that part kind of controlling everything in our lives. The middle ground is where, this side is sort of self-protection, and this side over here, there's no protection. It's totally out there, just reacting to the world. And so the middle ground is where there's an embracing of the sensitivity, there's an ownership of it, there's learning how to use it as an asset, and learning how to use that, if you like, in a way that's both rewarding to the self and rewarding to others, while at the same time appropriately guarding one's sensitivity, or we could almost say one's heart, protecting it from situations and people that are unsafe for the sensitivity, that like to exploit sensitivity. In a sense, they like to feed off other people's sensitivity. So there's a need to be both guarding in a healthy sense, so that sensitivity or the heart is available in areas of life where it's needed, where it's valued, and where it's valuable. For people that might fit into the highly sensitive person category, it's really just a case of learning how to navigate the external sensory world in a way that doesn't over stimulate the nervous system. Limiting time with others, or time out in the sensory world. Do whatever the sensitivity is, just learning how to manage that to keep things at an optimal level. And what I mean by optimal level, it's like we all have a sweet spot. What I mean is, figuring out how to live and find balance, so that we're working and living at our optimal space, where we can be the most creative, the most connected, the most self-aware, and the most aware we can be with other people. So there's nothing wrong with being sensitive. It's just often when we reject that sensitivity that we end up with the problem. So we learn how to not reject ourselves. Maybe we need to address those issues that led to that rejection, whether it's family of origin issues or whatever. That won't eradicate sensitivity. It'll just deal with the hurts that have complicated sensitivity. And then once that's worked through, then the sensitivity can be there purely as an asset and a part of the self, if you like, that can lead to a very fulfilling and a very fulfilling life and a well-connected life, in the sense of connected with the self, connected with other people in a healthy way, and even connected to God. So I hope there's some of you watching this video that have felt those deeper parts, those sensitive, vulnerable parts of you, feeling affirmed and feeling noticed and feeling valued. And I hope that this video has resonated with you, and I'll see you in another video.